Bienvenidos, bienvenidas, bienvenides. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Today's session is dedicated to Women's History Month, and we cannot begin to talk about Women's History Month without addressing the social justice for women and the people behind the work in ensuring the social justice of our women here in the Valley and SDSU Imperial Valley as well. Specifically, this session is dedicated to those at the forefront of reproductive justice, and that is the focus of our session for Women's History Month. But before we begin, we want to start with our land acknowledgement. For millennia, the Kumeyaay, Quechan, and Cocopa people have been part of this land. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the SDSU community, we acknowledge this legacy. We promote this balance and harmony. We find inspiration from this land, the land of the Kumeyaay, Quechan, and Cocopa. So about our moderators for this session, as I mentioned, it's important to highlight those at the forefront of the social justice, reproductive justice of people who identify as women here in the Valley and also the Pacific Southwest. And we cannot begin to address the social justice of our community, of the people who identify as women in our region without highlighting Planned Parenthood Generation Action. And specifically our SDSU Imperial Valley community leaders, student leaders behind this effort. I do want to first start by highlighting Susana Lopez, the founding advisor for the Planned Parenthood Generation Action, who has served for Planned Parenthood Generation Action over the last 2 years, and really we see these events on campus, we see the highlights, we see the successes of the work and these social justice efforts, but also what we don't see is the day-to-day hard work and dedication and the behind the scenes work dedicated to this effort. So we know before we introduce our moderators, just a moment and a round of applause also for our founding advisor for Planned Parenthood Generation Action, Susana Lopez. So now, who are our moderators, our facilitators for this session, and the women behind Planned Parenthood Generation Action, our student organization here at SDSU Imperial Valley. First, we'll start with Victoria Lara. Victoria Lara is a Mexican-American, lifelong Imperial Valley resident. She's a criminal justice student at SDSU-IV and hopes to pursue a legal career as an attorney. She is involved in local, political, social campaigning in her community, as well as on-campus initiatives like Empoderación en la Educación, student organizations such as Associated Students and Planned Parenthood Generation Action, on which she serves as Senator and Marketing Officer representative. She's lobbying to state legislation, marched in campaigns for social causes, and hopes to keep advocating for others through all her work. Thank you, Victoria, for being here and for being the leader for this session. Our next student leader is Christy Jimenez. Christy is currently a Master's of Social Work student and a PPS credential candidate at SDSU-IV, who will graduate in spring 2023. She has been involved with student leadership since she has as an undergraduate student and a student ambassador, and is currently a VP of International Affairs at Planned Parenthood Generation Action of SDSU Imperial Valley. She is currently a graduate assistant for the SDSU-IV Student Affairs and Cross-Cultural Center. Lastly, Christy is a recipient of the Master's Research Scholarship at SDSU 2023, and she has assisted with research in exploring among college students in the Imperial Valley and San Diego. So she's a Master's Research Scholarship recipient for 2022-2023. Our next student leader and also facilitator for this session is Jasmine Horton Alvarado. Jasmine is currently a Master's of Social Work student at San Diego State University in Imperial Valley and the current president of Associated Students, Planned Parenthood Generation Action, and Students of Social Work Association. She has experience in community organizing, advocacy, social justice, higher education, mental health, and early childhood education, storytelling, and much more. She's a national awardee of the Invincible Generation Action Leaders of the Year for 2021 by Planned Parenthood Federation of America, and awarded Constitute of the Month by Congressman Juan Vargas for her work on reproductive justice for students. Jasmine has been a speaker at multiple conferences and events on a variety of different topics, but particularly on the student experience of being queer, and particularly on the student experience of being a queer woman of color. So with no further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass on the mic to our moderators for today's session.
Thank you for the fabulous introduction, Dr. Falcon, and thank you so much, Susana, for being our advisor for Planned Parenthood Generation Action. So we are going to start off today's agenda with who is PPGA, what is Empoderación en la Educación, Empowerment in Education, what is Roe v. Wade, and why was it overturned? An introduction of our amazing panelists today. We're also going to have a panel discussion / Q&A from us, the moderators. And then we're going to open up the floor and ask for our audience to also, have discussions with our panelists and, a Q&A session with them too. And then we're going to have a closing keynote with Dr. Nunez, who is the Dean of San Diego State University in Imperial Valley. And then towards the end, we're going to have a book raffle where we're going to be raffling, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Falcon, is it 3 books or, yes, three books for, it's called Hood Feminism. So those who are interested in receiving one will have a spin the wheel towards the end of the session. So feel free to tune in and stick around. So starting off with the quote, "I am not free while any woman is unfree, even when her shackles are very different from my own." And this is a quote from Audre Lorde. So who is PPGA? Who is Planned Parenthood Generation Action? So Planned Parenthood Generation Action of SDSU Imperial Valley, we are a student-run, student-led chapter of Planned Parenthood that works to serve other students and the larger community here in Imperial Valley. And Planned Parenthood Generation Action of San Diego State University Imperial Valley aims to educate our members and the greater community, or better yet, our students and the greater community on sexual health and reproductive justice. We promote civic engagement through political outreach on campus and in the community. Locally and nationally recognized, we are a locally and nationally recognized organization featured in the LA Times. So some examples of some of our work have been tabling at community events and coalition building with other Imperial Valley nonprofits and organizations, such as the LGBTQ Resource Center, such as, I believe here in this picture, we also collaborated with other health organizations here in the Valley. And this was one of our first events where we offered care packages for our students during the pandemic through a drive-through wellness, Care for You drive-through, I think that's what we called it. And this was one of many that we've held for SDSU students on campus afterwards too. So, and then we also provide safe sex education. We also are there to empower our community and students to vote, to be aware of the issues that are going on, currently with our reproductive justice, with simply, human rights. So we're there to educate, empower, uplift, and, whoever, try to include as many people as we can in this movement. So Another picture that is over here, or milestone better yet, was the opening of our condom and period product dispensers at our SDSU Imperial Valley restrooms. So that was a very big milestone, and there was a lot of advocacy done so students are able to access these health resources on campus and for our SDSU students. So about the Cross-Cultural Center and Empoderación en la Educación. So the SDSU Imperial Valley's Cross-Cultural Center is focused on supporting the success of our diverse student community through programs and events centered on their social justice, inclusion, and validation. We are dedicated to fostering students' holistic learning and growth through initiatives centered on the social justice, inclusion, and validation of the intersectionalities of the social identities such as race, religion, ethnicity, class, ability, sexual orientation, gender, and gender expression. Empoderación en la Educación, or Empowerment in Education, is a series of lectures, symposiums, and activities both online and in person dedicated to amplifying underrepresented success stories in higher education. These events are parallel with our Heritage Months, highlighting Black, Native, Undocumented, and LGBTQ+ scholars, educators, and activists in education. And I'll pass over the mic to Jasmine.
Yes, thank you, Christy, for introducing us. So let's get right into some things about why we're here today. So we wanted to start off with just a statistic that really popped out to us when we were doing our research and the research that we do within Planned Parenthood Generation Action. So over 40% of women will terminate a pregnancy at some point in their lives. Of the 50 million abortions that occur every year around the world, only 20 to 30% will be safe and legal. Perfect. And so that leads us to the world that we're in today of pre-Roe, post-Roe. And so just to give us some sort of background on where we are today and how we kind of got here, just some general information about Roe v. Wade. So back in 1973, there was a legal proceeding that occurred by Roe versus Wade. And I wanted to take a second before I dived into the legal logistics of it to put a name to Roe, because I think a lot of people might know Roe v. Wade, but they don't understand the people that were really instrumental in making it happen. And so Roe was actually named Jane Roe in order to protect her identity. And her name was Norma McCorvey, and she was an unmarried woman who wanted to safely and legally end her pregnancy. And so she went against the district attorney in the Dallas County in Texas. And what proceeded was that the right to liberty in the Constitution, which protects personal privacy of individuals, should include the right to decide whether to continue a pregnancy. And in recognizing the right to abortion, the Roe v. Wade was consistent with earlier Supreme Court rulings that recognized this right to privacy that protects the intimate and personal decisions that people make. And again, to include child rearing decisions that women or those with uteruses have to make. And this was really critical. This decision was absolutely instrumental in advancing gender equality in different spheres that we see in society, educational, economic, political, because it really gave women and those who have uteruses finally the chance to make decisions on their own bodies on whether they wanted to have a family or not, which before then was not a choice given to them. And so after this, a lot of different healthcare professionals, healthcare providers, women's rights activists, different members in society and stakeholders and the legal community lobbied state legislators and went to court to overturn statutes that had been in place before the turn of the century. And something that was quoted in the research that I did for this was that this Roe v. Wade was really a step that had to be taken as we go down the road toward the full emancipation of women, which I think was a really profound statement to make. And a little history lesson before Roe. So a lot of the statutes that were in place that were starting to become overturned due to the Roe v. Wade ruling were actually established in like the latter half of the 19th century. So it was not something that existed before the 19th century. It was something that really just like in time had become something that was banned abortions. And so then our society sort of went full circle and decided to give back the choice to women to have pregnancies or not. Yeah, so then that leads us to where we are today, the overturning of Roe v. Wade. So again, we're started kind of like history is repeating itself. And 17%, and these are just like some statistics I've added here to this slide to sort of give you an idea of what life is like now post Roe v. Wade. So 17% of all deaths due to pregnancy and childbirth were actually a result of illegal abortions. And so having Roe v. Wade was really instrumental in providing safe abortions for women to have, so that way they were not dying as a result of not wanting to continue their pregnancy or give birth to children. Because the risk associated with childbirth is actually 14 times higher than what's associated with abortion. And now to this day, abortions are one of the safest medical procedures that are performed according to the CDC. And so now that we are in post-Roe times, we're seeing a lot of legislation being passed across our nation, specifically bans on bodily autonomy and surrounding abortion and the women's right to choose whether they want to carry their pregnancy to full term or not. And so since the overturning, like I said, multiple states have set forth abortion bans, and some of the most notable ones that we're seeing are in Kentucky, Georgia, and Tennessee, with some of the most strict bans of abortion being at 16 weeks. You are no longer past 16 weeks allowed to legally get an abortion in those states. Florida has a 15-week ban, and West Virginia has a near total ban of abortion. And all of these have only one exception, and that's if the mother or the person who is about to give birth is in serious medical distress and they are about to die. But even then, the near total bans and the 16-week bans are not as flexible as they were before. And so we're also seeing a lot of bans because of the overturning of Roe v. Wade and this overturning of right of privacy and right of people being able to choose how they live their lives, bans on trans healthcare. In reversing this, trans folks and queer people in general are starting to feel the limitations of their human rights across states. This is including legislation against drag queens and mass shootings in queer spaces. And we're continuing to see legislation against trans folks being able to participate in everyday life, being able to access the healthcare that they need, gender affirming healthcare. And we're also seeing a lot of legislation against drag queens recently, and it's going to continue to spiral now that this overturning of right to privacy is in place. And so as we look to the future of human rights, it's really this unknown territory, but we know what life is like with Roe v. Wade in place. And so as we continue to see legislation across the states stripping away these rights to privacy, autonomy, sexuality orientation, healthcare, education, and voting, really the time for action is now, and it's really critical. And so having these discussions is one of those ways to really bring forth those who are on the front line, who are really pushing for this access to healthcare, this access to bodily autonomy, and really learning from them on what it is that we as supporters, as allies, should be doing to show up. And I will pass it to Victoria.
Thank you, Jasmine, for setting the scene for our session today. And I would just like to echo your statement that you just made, that the time for action is now. And so as we transition into introducing our panelists, I can't stress enough how important it is to recognize the people who are, the experts in this matter currently and who are on the front lines. So with that, we'd like to introduce you to our amazing panelists today, representing Planned Parenthood of the Pacific Southwest. And first, we start off with Karen Borgia. Karen is the Director of Legislative and Community Affairs for Planned Parenthood of the Pacific Southwest. And she works with her team to expand reproductive health care and protect access to abortion throughout legislation, activism, and education. She has more than 15 years of experience in nonprofit management and grassroots organizing across the Inland Empire, and she's overall a great advocate for this cause. Next, we have Judy Vons, and she is our public affairs manager. She's a daughter of 2 U.S. veterans. She's an SDSU alumni and a community organizer in the San Diego community. Through her advocacy, she's been able to propose new social programs for San Diego County and is actively working alongside the Community Budget Alliance and Invest in San Diego Families Coalition in order to pass new policies that promote health equity. She is a current public affairs manager of San Diego and Imperial counties for PPSW, and she serves as the vice chair for Planned Parenthood's National Volunteer Program, as well as a secretary for the New Youth Development Corporation. And Judy, although she's pretty much based in San Diego, she's been a great advocate for the Imperial Valley, and she's very Next, we have Melissa Martinez. Melissa is the Specialty Service Center Manager. She was raised here in the Imperial County where she still resides. She completed her bachelor's in psychology at SDSU and her master's in marriage and family children therapy at the University of Phoenix. She's a certified HIV counselor, is credentialed in addictions, and has also worked in the medical and mental health fields for over 20 years. She has worked with at-risk youth and the senior citizen population as a social worker, as well as with state parole, federal probation, and the incarcerated communities. Most recently, she worked in a medical clinic and is currently pursuing a license as a therapist. Melissa is dedicated to implementing services to better support the Imperial Valley and is looking forward for the opportunity to work and learn together for the benefit of the community. And thank you, Melissa. And last but not least, our very own Maribel Padilla, our Imperial Valley community organizer. Maribel was born in Mexicali, February 1st, 1964, and moved to Calexico when she was just 8 years old, where she graduated from Calexico High School in 1982. She now lives in El Centro, is married, and has 2 grown sons. In February 2015, she co-founded Brown Bag Coalition, which is a nonprofit organization that provides meals and services for the homeless population across the Imperial Valley. Maribel is currently employed at Planned Parenthood Action Fund of Pacific Southwest since November 2019, and she's the first community organizer for the Imperial County. She also serves as an advisor for PPGA, Planned Parenthood Generation Action, right here at the SDSU Imperial Valley campus. And with that introduction, again, I'd like to thank all our amazing panelists for being here today, and I will turn it over to Chrissy so that we can jump into our discussion.
Great, thank you so much, Victoria, and welcome panelists. So I just stopped sharing my screen just so we're able to kind of face each other. So I will be asking the first question. So the first question goes to everyone, all panelists or whoever wants to answer. What advice do you have for people who may have been hesitant before, are now extremely scared to access reproductive services due to national news coverage on legislation restricting access? And let me know if you would like me to repeat the question.
I think Karen's trying to take the mic.
Oh, you're muted.
High
Karen.
quality services. Ooh, did you hear me?
I
Hearing
just
now.
started hearing you right now.
Oh. All right, I can start all over. So the first thing for us to share and to sort of level set is that abortion access in California is still safe and legal. And anyone that comes to Planned Parenthood will find compassionate, high quality services, including abortion care. The abortion bans across this country As of yesterday, we are saying that there are 19 states, almost half of our states, with some kind of restriction, either a X-week ban or an all-right ban on abortion access. And so what I would say to people hesitant is that since the fall of Dobbs, and you might hear us talk about like post-Roe, post-Dobbs. Dobbs was a case that occurred, as mentioned, this past June. I'll talk about it as post-Dobbs. Since the fall of Dobbs, we know that all of these bans have really created a very dangerous atmosphere across this country. They have made it literally impossible for people to have a choice. So we are no longer talking about pro-choice, right? Like those are not words that you'll likely hear any of us mention today, because there's a lot of people across this country who even before the Dobbs case happened, had no choice to abortion access. And so what I will also mention, right, is that at Planned Parenthood, we believe that there is a fight to be had in this state, outside of this state, across this country, to ensure that reproductive health care is available to people when they need it, where they need it, and however it might be that they need it.
I also want to mention there is an ongoing effort at the state level to ensure people who are coming to our state are protected, that their data is protected. And that also includes protections for health center staff, so that if people are coming here, there are protections in place so that an individual can't be sued by another state. There's an ongoing effort to ensure that if people are coming here, they will be legally protected. And like Karen mentioned, it is safe and legal for all. And our affiliate and our partners and our state affiliate are keeping that at the forefront of our work, because we know that's a big, scary point for a lot of people, especially with a lot of attention being centered on data privacy. So privacy and legality are at the top of our mind when we're thinking about our work.
Great. Oh, sorry. Jasmine, were you going to say something? No, I was going to say that it's really important to, especially for other people who are coming from out of state, you know, to have those protections, especially with all of these, you know, even laws against people to even help others to cross state lines or to receive these services. It is a pretty scary time. And you know, you can see that, you know, hesitation, I think, with, you know, a lot of people, you know, nowadays just seeking services even, you know, so that's really good information and valuable information to share, you know, to other people. So this other question is specifically to Karen, but anyone else can also answer. So Karen, do you oversee PPGAs in our region? Karen, you oversee PPGAs in our region. What have you seen amongst youth today post-Roe that is either inspirational or wish you saw more of?
I'll give you like the polished answer first, and then I'll give you the real sentiment answer later, right? So we know that the fall of Dobbs, the rescinding of the privacy that we had with Roe v. Wade, disrupted basic access to sexual and reproductive health care. It also moved the conversation around like comprehensive sex ed, where we had been like hearing a lot about sex ed in the news locally at this like national level, at a statewide level. And now we hardly ever hear anyone mention comprehensive sex ed, right? We hear more the topic around abortion access. And so that's definitely one of the components that our young people are just going to be forced to fight for, are gonna be forced to organize and demand that their siblings, their kids have access to comprehensive sexual health education that is LGBTQ inclusive, science-based, age-appropriate, where it matters. We have always known, right, that Roe was not the ceiling. It was literally the floor, the bare bones basic. And as I mentioned, there had already been many people across this country who did not have access and did not have a choice to the care for their own bodies and their own autonomy. One of the things that has been, without a doubt, very important about the movements that young people have been leading these last couple of years is that Roe was the floor, that our young people understand that their rights to abortion have really never been guaranteed, and that there is like a movement afoot, something to be had. Our young people have always understood that hurdles of distance, money, childcare, taking time off work, other restrictions have really stood in the way of people's health for the last 50 years. I am immensely inspired by our PPGA students at San Diego State Imperial Valley, at San Diego State, literally everywhere that we have a PPGA, our students are not sitting in the sidelines. Our students are not taking the easy activities and like, okay, yes, this is enough, right? They are going above and beyond to really help cover their fellow classmates, right? When it comes to Plan B, wellness machines on campuses, just being a safe space for someone else to come and ask you, hey, what do you know about Planned Parenthood? Is it really safe for me to be there? Will I really be anonymous? Like, you are all answering and delivering for your own student body, and that is one immense work. It's tremendous, right? It's inspiring to have so many like students engaged in this work and fighting for better access to menstrual health and sexual health products on campuses and education, and also at the state level, right? Lobbying for federal bills to move access onto your campus. That has been very important. The personal note is this generation is scary. We have been at many rallies, many events, and just the way that sort of like cold anger flows out of our young people. Oh man, did I freeze again? No. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry, internet problems, right? Just the way like the cold anger moves through our students and our young people genuinely is very scary. I am very inspired. I get the chills, right? Whenever I hear our students talk, give public comment, write a letter. Jasmine shared a letter that PPGA sent to a city council meeting not that long ago. Like, wow, just the immense empathy for community as a whole. People should be scared, right? Like, rightfully so. It's not that you're all the future, right? Like, that's not the conversation you're all having. The conversation is like, we are the present. We are here. We are not going to take this on the sidelines. So those are my comments.
I want to echo what Karen said about, I like being scary and I like scary young people, because that's like the biggest lesson that I keep relearning about this reproductive movement, is that it has to be justice centered. And when we base our values and our movement in helping some people and not all people, we fail. And that is what Karen just mentioned with Roe being on the floor. Roe was good for white affluent people who, whether there was abortion care or not in their state, they can afford a plane ticket. They can afford childcare. They can afford missing some time to get an abortion. And if we use that logic and apply that to working families, undocumented people, LGBTQ people, we're missing out on all of these things that contribute to our strategies. And so for me personally, being a part of PPGA once as a student and then leading PPGAs here, I am always reminded on how we have to keep adapting to a changing environment, especially because the pandemic has changed so much of our lives and has worsened economic situations for people. We have to be very vigilant that we're still in a very fluid situation, but we can't forget to remember how we got here. And we got here because of what Karen just said. The movement itself wasn't doing enough to center these voices that have been screaming for years that it wasn't enough. And now, look, we all lose. We all lose when we don't center people who are the most marginalized and impacted by abortion bans. So shout out to the scary young people. I feel like we're in a good place on this call as a team.
All right, would anybody else like to contribute anything else before we move on to the next question? All right, Maribel, we're good. All right, thank you. And before we move on from the topic of, privilege and our place here in California, obviously we're very privileged and lucky that in the state, our access to reproductive care and justice is still protected. But as we've seen across the nation, there are many states where people where they are having their rights and these privileges, taken these rights, and people are challenging, their abilities to bodily autonomy and justice. So this is a question for everybody. In what ways is Planned Parenthood helping people across the country receive care? Were you prepared for or expecting such an increase in the needs for services in neighboring states?
Maybe we'll let Melissa start this one off.
I think, good afternoon, first of all. As you mentioned before, my name is Melissa. I'm the new center manager here at the El Centro Clinic. I have roughly like a month and a half working here. And one of the things that I've seen that we ensure is that all patients have patient access. We've done a analysis first of what works for patients, especially because we're covering areas of Arizona, Mexico, and sometimes Nevada and other states. And we assure them to have a speedy but very open appointment with us. We have made an analysis in our hours. Sometimes people here in the community, we work late hours, and sometimes most of our facilities here, any doctor's appointments or anything, have been 8 to 5. So right now we have services going up until 7 o'clock at night. So we've opened to better care and have better access with our patients from all over. And also linking them to other services if needed, after and even before they come to get services at our site. So we're in continuous analyzing what our community needs and also outside our community to be more accessible for our patients.
I can touch on that. My name again is Maribel Padilla. I'm the community organizer here, advisor for PPGA. And what we did with PPGA members and volunteers, we had care baskets made for the people coming for abortions here at the clinic. They sent us 500 of these baskets to make. We made them all in one day because the scary PPGA members that I have and the volunteers wanted to get it all done in one day because I wanted to do it like in several days. No, they wanted it in one day. And while they were actually also phone banking for Proposition 1 at the time. So these care baskets, the patients receive them, and some of them like maybe will go to a hotel afterwards before they travel out. So these baskets contain like, you know, the socks and snacks, coloring pages and stuff, something to keep you busy. And then we have heat pads, pads and stuff, menstrual stuff. So that was one of the things that we did here. And this is the only chapter that did it. Imperial County was the only one that did it. San Diego didn't do the baskets or Riverside. It was just Imperial County. And so, and it was just with a few members. So kudos to them for coming up and trying to make these baskets to make somebody that we don't know from here, from any other state, from Mexico. But we wanted them to feel, you know, to have something nice when they left here. And so it just shows the empathy from all the members and the volunteers. And it's kudos to them.
Thank you. Did anybody else want to answer that before we move on?
Sorry, before you ask your question, Jasmine, I wanted to also thank Maribel because I think that Maribel has been a very amazing and also very scary leader here in the community. And I think that we've all, like, how can I explain it? You're someone that we look up to, and at the same time, you're very caring. Like, lo que tienes de scary and ferocious, lo tienes de like a very caring individual. And we just want to like deeply thank you, like on behalf of like PPGA, like we really truly appreciate you, and we've learned from the very best.
I'll give you your $10 later, Christy.
Well, let me say something
Thank
now
you.
too, so I can get my $10.
Well, that's scary.
Just kidding. But no, to echo what Christy said, Maribel has done just a phenomenal job in the work that she does as a community organizer here in the Imperial Valley, and being the first to do that is always a learning curve for positions like that. And I think that she's really taken a handle on that position and expanded into what is now something really big and really beautiful here in the Imperial Valley that I feel very fortunate to have been a part of and get to work with her with. And so this next question is for Maribel specifically. In the work that she does with PPGA, Maribel, a lot of us in PPGA are graduating, and I know that we've talked about this with you many times on sort of the longevity of student engagement and student participation in the fight for reproductive justice. So in your opinion, how can students continue to get involved in this advocacy for reproductive rights? And how can people stay informed and involved about these issues as students graduate from SDSU-IV, or we'll talk about SDSU-IV specifically because that's where we're at.
So just because you're graduating, well, it means you're no longer a PPGA member since you're not at SDSU, but now you become a regular volunteer. And knowing me, you know I'm going to harass you every time I have something to do, protest, or anything that I need volunteers for. You the graduated are gonna be my first to go to. So you don't get away with it because you're graduating. Because there's still a lot of lobbying to do. There's still a lot of protests to do. There's still a lot of awareness we have to bring to this county. I mean, we are the poorest county in the state. We have one of the highest rates of teen pregnancy, STDs. We don't teach sex ed much here, so we have to change those things. And so that's something that we have to go forward to, and that's going to be, I'm going to be needing a lot of volunteers. I mean, you can sign up for the emails that you get. You can sign up for on the website, and then you can always check with me if you happen to be bored and have nothing to do when you're done graduating, and I will put you to work. So there's no rest here. This goes on for a while longer, who knows how long. And as long as I'm here, I mean, I will keep pushing and going forward and pushing you guys all, because I can't do it alone. I need the help from the volunteers, the PPGA members. So I am here.
Thank you, Maribel. That was a beautifully said answer.
And now that we're talking, or we're getting into the topic of, Imperial Valley, specifically, how can people volunteer and all of that. I just want to, ask a question that just brings a little bit of background of specifically the health center here in El Centro. So this question is to Melissa. So Melissa, as the new coordinator for the health clinic here in Imperial Valley, what has your transition into this role been like, being post-Roe and being in an area that is conservative and rural?
One of the things that I can say, and I said it on 2 weeks ago that I met all of you, that was great, is that I'm coming from a background of underserved populations that are always overlooked, right? The mental health, the addictions. And I think that coming to Planned Parenthood gave me another reason why I was good fit for here. And that is because in my past history of work and working with diversity of populations, from the HIV population, from mental health, from addictions, it goes back again to always saying that our community it's a very different community from other communities. We are a community that sometimes tends to be blind on the issues that are currently happening in our community. One of the things that I've learned through my 20 years working in the Valley is that in the eyes of our community, we're perfect. We don't have addiction problems. We don't have mental health problems. We don't have HIV here. We don't have anything like that. We're perfect. However, we know that's not true. We know that there's a lot of work that needs to be done to be at par with big cities. There's a lot of things that our community lacks, aside from resources. We're the highest rate of unemployment. Our resources are limited. And for the most part, our community is served by mamas and papas kind of ideas, right? We've come a long way, but we're still not there. And with Planned Parenthood, I see that there's a big need for our community to get educated. It's not only about Planned Parenthood being the abortion site. And coming here, before I got employed here, I started asking around, friends, family, just people around the community. Do you know about Planned Parenthood? Oh yeah, the abortion, or yeah, a clinic. Yeah, where they do like everyday abortions. And one of the things that I've done, just like when I worked with mental health, that it's like nobody has problems with mental health or addictions. Nobody has a family member or a friend that have gone through some type of situations. I had to redirect, re-educate those people. One, by stating, no, Planned Parenthood is not only about abortion. There's other services that are being served there. It's about health, women's health, men's health. It's more to it. But I guess since, social media, we have the power to say or to erase or to manipulate a lot of what's being said. A lot of it's lack of communication, misinterpretation of information, especially to a community that it's not there yet. We still have a lot of education to do with the youth. There's a lot of things that needs to be done here in the community. And just meeting with you guys the other day, and telling you of the services that we're providing. Some of you were like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. Or, oh yes, I knew that. So there's a lot more to be done here in our community to actually engage and educate our community, just like we've been doing with other underserved populations like mental health, addictions, the homelessness, right? There's a lot to do. There's a lot of education, and your group has shown, and the day that I met all of you, and also Maribel, meeting with her and all the things that she's done, I think that there's room for a lot more, a lot of growth and being out there, because it's not enough just to turn the other way and say nothing's happening here, or I don't want to accept that my community has some issues. It's embracing them and trying to find ways to help people, link people, and actually educate them for a better health. There's a lot of people that I've talked to. They talk about, well, going there, if people see me going there for not an abortion, but just a yes visit, an annual visit, right? What are they gonna say? That you went to Planned Parenthood. Just like if you go, oh, you were at, I don't know, at El Centro Regional, it's educating, but it starts with ourselves. It starts with knowing where we stand and how we promote not only Planned Parenthood in general, but just good health, good habits, and addressing that gray area where nobody wants to kind of look at, because then it means the spotlight is on us. And then we have to admit that, the Imperial County has some issues. It's more to it. So coming in here, I saw a lot of support. It's like walking to our clinic and working with the staff, with management. You see the support. It's not only just coming to the clinic and saying, well, I have to do this or I have to do that. It's a job. No, you can see that each person that I've come across as a staff, they're invested. They believe that everybody deserves good health. So it's more to breaking away from that enmeshed community and educating when we can, and correcting people sometimes at all levels.
Thank you, Melissa. The Valley does certainly face a lot of specific challenges, but like you mentioned, educating the community can go a long ways. And so our next question on that note, this question is for Judy. You were, a PPGA member at main campus, SDSU San Diego. And a lot of your work has been based, in San Diego and the surrounding larger cities. But now that you will be working, out of the Imperial Valley and more closely with Maribel, what are some specific challenges that you're anticipating or working in terms of dealing with our cultural and socioeconomic background of the people here in the Valley?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And I really appreciate it. First, just want to say I'm excited to be coming to the Imperial Valley a lot more this year. I really want to be a resource, but I really want to continue the work that Maribel has already laid out for us so well with you all. But before I answer this question, I kind of want to give some insight on the organizing strategies that I have here in San Diego. Across our county, we serve different populations and cities, and it has actually really helped me think through how to approach Imperial once I started doing more organizing out there. So just to start us off, I'm actually from the desert, so I'm keenly aware of what it's like living in very hot weather and how that also influences volunteers, organizers. It means we have different schedules and later hours. So I come into the Imperial Valley with the lived experiences of navigating very hot weather and what that means for you all. In terms of San Diego is a very big place. However, the city of San Diego, in terms of what it is within the county, the city is 8% of the county, and the center of the city is mostly white and affluent people. However, majority of the county is very diverse, and we're number 6 in the nation for most refugees and immigrants resettling. And just in the past 2 years, we have welcomed 1/3 of refugees' arrivals, and more than half end up staying in San Diego. There are different issues that affect communities across this region that I've gotten to learn. In the South, there are Logan Heights and Barrio Logan. Their issues are very similar to the Imperial with their air quality and pollution. The South Bay has the highest rates of asthma compared to central and northern parts. In places like Encinitas, La Jolla, that are northern San Diego, they're dealing with erosion and bluffs. In Poway, a northeastern part of San Diego, they're dealing with their one and only hospital that does labor and delivery shutting down. And then in East County, San Diego, it's the most conservative and hostile, with well-known white supremacist groups that are active, that are very bold and very visible, that we also interact with. I say all that because different areas require different strategies, and all areas require a sense of trust and connection to the people, especially when you're connecting with the people who are already mobilizing people in their community. Understanding the region and meeting with community partners to hear the issues and beginning to foster new connections is at the top of my mind, which Maribel already does and does so well. Showing up and listening to the issues, attending the meetings and rallies, all those things are very important. And even though in the region that I serve, there are different issues, there are overlapping issues. And so I say all that because I recognize in Imperial, there are very different issues across the different cities, but there are also overlapping issues that we also have to navigate when we are organizing. So for me, coming into Imperial, this means thinking about coalition building and who's already doing the work and identifying more allies that can join the movement. In terms of issues that I'm anticipating personally, there are a lot of issues that have been discussed on this call, including we're mobilizing people who are very under-resourced, people with lower incomes, people who are undocumented, people, again, that are dealing with health issues related to the environment because of the air quality, because of the saltancy and what that does to the valley every single time it's windy, especially. So I'm thinking about people dynamics and what it means to organize people that are honestly already overworked and tired, and being gentle in my approach to asking them to get more involved in our plans. In terms of issues that we're hoping to address, learn about, create more awareness on with community partners, we know there's a big environmental impact because of the Salton Sea. And I think for me, coming from San Diego, what I want to accomplish personally, even in this region that I serve, is making it known that the Salton Sea is not just an imperial issue. It is a everybody issue. It's a California issue. It may not be our issue directly right now in this moment, but it will be. And the longer we neglect addressing the Salton Sea, the worse the problem becomes, which would disproportionately impact this community first that you all serve, but it will eventually make its way to other communities. And again, that's what we talked about earlier with reproductive rights and Roe being on the floor. We're not prioritizing this issue as a state because people don't see it as their issue, but it is their issue. They're just not making it a priority. Other issues that we are also looking at that have presented some challenges are transit. We're also thinking about how often immigrants and refugees are resettling in Imperial. And just for Planned Parenthood specifically, we're always thinking about like health services and information that we can provide to the community. But even before we get to that, like I mentioned before, establishing trust and learning the issues that impact people is very important to me. So as much as I would like to go door knocking and talking about what we offer at Planned Parenthood, I really just want to start with a hello and like, who are you? What do I need to know about you so that I can approach you with respect, approach you with insight and cultural sensitivity? And are there things that I need to know before I even talk with you about Planned Parenthood? So again, I just want to emphasize the approach that I have comes from being here and interacting very differently in places like Barrio Logan, Chula Vista, San Isidro, all nearby the border, versus places like Encinitas, La Jolla, Del Mar that are more affluent. All of those strategies I've learned are all very different. And so I think the strategies that I'm taking with me for Imperial are the strategies that I have used for our Black and Brown communities and communities neighboring the border. And just knowing that I'm asking a lot from people that are already overworked, who have been doing this work underpaid or not paid, and that I need to be very open and willing to get guidance from people like yourselves. Y'all are the experts, and I'm here to honestly amplify what y'all are doing and getting coalitions started so that we can be a more united front. I hope that answers the question.
It did. Thank you so much, Judy, for that. And I think you really led us onto this really positive path and this transition into sort of closing out our questions that we have as moderators for this. And I believe we have two more. And then we'll open it up for the audience. If you have questions for our panelists, you are more than welcome to ask them in the chat box as well. So if you would like to start submitting your questions, you're more than welcome to, but we will also, after our two questions, ask if you want to unmute yourself and ask your questions directly to your panelists. So this is for all of our panelists, and I would really love if all of you answered this question, and maybe we'll start with Karen. Who is or are the most influential women or woman that you know, and how does she inspire you to do the work that you do today?
This was the toughest question out of all of them. I'll start there. I am very, and have always been very fortunate to live a very heavily influenced life by like women, by the LGBTQ community. Like, it is just, I was born and raised, right? I went to school to an all-women's university. The work I do now, like 90% of our staff, I believe, are women at Pacific Southwest. So the short answer to your short question is literally like every woman I bump into. I have had the privilege of organizing with farm worker women for 7 to 10 years. I've had the privilege of writing and planning and developing program with LGBTQ women at work now, as you've heard them, right? I get the opportunity to learn and bump into and work with very, very powerful women. So the short answer to your short question is like literally everyone I bump into. In this line of work, I also have a lot of access to political women, from offices like school board members to state senators and assembly members. It's very hard to
Sorry, Karen, you muted for a little bit. Can you hear us? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
I don't know if she can hear us. Oh, there you go.
Sorry, I cut off. Huh?
Just a little bit, maybe like 10, 15 seconds.
That helps me. Let me reel back my answer. In short, all women inspire me. There is like something very powerful about every single one of us, even from the one that you're like, oh, I don't know if her values align with mine. I don't know if what she's saying really like touches me or my life. Early on in my professional career, I learned that everyone goes home to someone that loves them, whether it be their dog, their spouse, their children, right? Like all of us go home to someone that thinks we are the best person. And so that's kind of how I like answer this question, right? Like every single woman you bump into, there is something genuinely profoundly powerful about each one of us. Even if politically we don't see eye to eye, even if socially, monetarily we don't see eye to eye, there really is something that we can pull out from each one of us. Everything that's going on right now with the president, like I constantly tell my husband, like, how did we women let this ship get so far down the road, right? Like, how did we let ourselves, I don't know, let other people lead for us, right? Let other people make decisions for us. As women, we are just so powerful. And the movement that we create together of taking a lot of that power back, that is maybe the most inspiring thing for me day in and day out. Just like being part of the movement to change the patriarchy.
I love that. How about we move on to Melissa and Maribel? The question, I'll repeat the question for you all. Who is or are the most influential woman or women that you know, and how does she inspire the work that you do today?
I think for me, just like Karen said, it's really hard, but I can tell you that there has been a lot of women that have influenced me throughout my life, starting since, I was born with my mom, very resilient immigrant coming to the US, to my sister that she fought in a men's world, working towards getting a position where only men led. And she was the first female who became in charge of the IT department in a very big, I won't say where, but and just going through the years of work, one of the most influential women that I've come across was Mary Camacho, who was the superintendent at IVRP, that opened doors for a lot of us. And a lot of you, when I met you in our mixer, you guys would have been perfect back then with IVRP, with Mary Camacho, because she believed that everybody had an opportunity of growth at all levels. She fought for equality. She fought to bring resources to the Valley. And within that agency, I got to meet, my direct supervisor, who is one of the persons that advocates daily for foster kids, for youth, that helps out. She has so many things going on, and she still signs up for any additional things that could help the youth, the community. She's also helps out here, Ms. Maribel Padilla, feeding the homeless, teaching the kids to give back to the community as well, to underserve our underserved population. Her name is Ana Vizcaíno. She's a teacher at Central, and she's always very engaged to helping everyone, no matter what time it is. I'm lucky to call her my best friend as well. Also, the lady sitting next to me that made noise when nobody really wanted to pay attention of the need for the homelessness. And it's gotten worse with COVID and everything. So I didn't know her personally, but I would hear that she was making noise. And if you're from the Valley, you know that we go back, it's really hard to make noise here because we're trying to not let people know that there's actually an issue in our community. Maribel is an inspirational here for the community, going out of her way to help not only Planned Parenthood, but the homelessness, which has become a big problem here. So to tell you, throughout the years, I can tell you that I've been lucky, just like Karen said, to run into many powerful and influential persons that maybe they're not on books, maybe they don't come out on TV, but they make noise and they become very scary to some people when they are very vocal around the community. And I think that in general, every woman brings to the table a lot. It's just reinforcing them to believe in them. And you can take a lot from them if you just listen.
Thank you, Melissa.
And she didn't pay me.
No, I didn't. So everybody knows I love Ruth Bader Ginsburg. That woman got us where we're at now. Because, I mean, if you think back, she's such a little tiny little, person. And she was really fighting like the males in the world. She did, she did all these laws where now we don't have to ask our husbands so we can open a joint account. That's something that was done before her. And which you guys might not know about, but yeah, back in the day, you had to ask your husband for everything. Heaven forbid you want an abortion. So you have to ask for that too. So Ruth Bader Ginsburg has been like, oh my gosh, she is like one badass woman. The other one, I think, is Hillary Clinton, because Hillary Clinton has been working for so long to, for children and for women's rights and stuff. And it's not as much as what she's done, but I mean, just to see how, not that she failed, but she didn't get the presidency because of so many factors or whatever, but she showed us, I mean, she felt globally, right? Everybody knew, everybody was waiting for her to be president, and then she didn't get it. We're all crying because I was crying. I don't drink, and I took a shot of tequila because I was so distraught that she lost. But she showed us what it is to go on after defeat, how to hold up your head up high and keep going. Because she did, there was some tweet that said, just go back to go knitting, do knitting something or other. She didn't go back to go knit or anything. She's still out there fighting for us. She's still showing that, you know what, you might be defeated, but you keep going. You don't just sit it out and say, oh, next woman that gets it or whatever. She's still out there. So that's like I think like something, when something goes wrong or something tells us like, well, I mean, if she did it on a global scale, everybody saw her on, on TV and all that stuff. You could see the distraught on her face when she gave the concession speech. That's like, you can go on, there will be a next day. And so I love that she shows us that there is hope for a next day, even if what you were doing failed for whatever reason, you can keep going. So I love both those women.
Thank you both for that answer. And we'll end with Judy, who inspires you.
First of all of you do. And I really have been just I don't want to say shocked, but just always just so proud and happy to see what people are doing. And I feel like y'all have been, like, you've done everything above and beyond what was expected of you. And it really motivates me to put more, not want to say pressure on the students that I'm with, but like, hey, y'all, we can be better. There's so much going on, and y'all have really got outside the box on how you can organize on your campus. And it motivates me. It's helped me a lot with my stuff. There's so many women that come to my mind. There are two women that are on my heart right now. And the first is my mom, because my mom is unconditionally devoted to her patients. She's a physical therapist and has worked 30 years in that realm. And when I was a kid, I was really frustrated with her because my mom used to leave for work really early and would come home really late. And I just always felt like I was missing her, and I never knew where she was. And as an adult, I grew up to find out that my mom was always staying after hours because she was having conversations with patients, offering extra assistance to patients and their families, and always advocating for people, even when my mom was told to stay in her lane. My mom always took an 8-hour workday and made it a 10-hour workday because she always felt like she had to really make sure she left on a good note with the patient, especially because a lot of her patients were learning how to use their bodies again. And even though it's called physical therapy, it ends up really being mental, spiritual, because you're encouraging people in some of their darkest days to learn how to feel like themselves again. So my mom is my number one, because I have also learned that I have a hard time shutting off my own empathy for people, because I'm fueled by stories that I hear from people. And so even if I'm done with work at 4, sometimes I really do have to stay another hour or two, because I just want to make sure people are heard and that I'm really listening. And it just feels good for me. My political aspiration, and someone that I've always admired since she announced her campaign, is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I actually had a chance to meet her earlier this year, and it was while I was at DC with Maribel, and I have a picture of her pulled up. I think about this woman very frequently, and I thought about meeting her when I was in DC, but I think about her a lot because it's hard. I think what's not talked about is it's hard staying in this type of work. It's very draining. It's very dangerous. I think about safety all the time for myself. I think about Maribel all the time now because she kicks ass, but I'm like, I still worry because of where y'all are. And I just naturally just feel very protective of myself and staff. But I think about what it must feel like to be on a stage like that and being ripped apart all the time by people, and how it takes real guts and knowing yourself to stay, because at the end of the day, even though it's hard, you are there for yourself, but you're there because of the community behind you. And I think for me, meeting her and just the connections that I felt even before I met her were that she has a lot of people rooting for her. And I had this idea in mind that strong women are able to stay in these positions because of strong women behind them that are keeping them there. And so I mentioned my mom and AOC. I also want to honor and mention Maribel and Karen because strong women are the reason why I'm able to do what I'm doing. And I tap into that strength, especially when I'm not feeling strong. And I tap into the strength of this group because what y'all are doing is revolutionary and it is seen and it's felt, and it's really only the beginning of this work. And y'all have already done so much. So Mom, AOC, Karen, Maribel, PPGA, all of you, I just love and honor and respect strong people, strong women like yourselves, because it really does motivate me to stay in this very challenging field of reproductive rights and politics.
I want to add one more thing to what everybody's saying, because they just reminded me of my group chat. Sorry, I can't tell if you can hear me or not. Yes, I think you can. Okay. They just reminded me of my like collegiate best friends, Jasmine and Leslie. We call ourselves the Coven. We have like a really intense group chat where it doesn't matter what our job titles are, like it doesn't matter where we live, it doesn't matter how much we make or what we're like, the love that we have for each other is just so strong. It's definitely one of the things I admire of our PPGA group. Like the bonds you all make with each other at this like collegiate level are just so beautiful to witness from the outside, because in some part, those are the people that carry us forward, right? Like those are the people that, as I was saying, right, it doesn't matter what I say in this meeting. I know that Jasmine and Leslie are gonna love me when I text them back later on about how the panel went, right? Like those are the folks that I would definitely recommend that we all continue to look to be inspired and loved by, right? Like the homie group is sometimes what I call them too. So shout out to the group chat.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone, for your awesome responses to the women that influence you personally, but also politically and professionally. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm not gonna lie, I'm like also inspired by all of you too. So thank you so much. And with that, I want to open the floor to questions from the audience. So if you have a question for our panel, please make sure to leave it on the chat, or you can also feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question. And for those who do ask questions, we'll include you in the spin the wheel raffle to win a book. So I would highly encourage you to ask your questions.
I will pass on the book raffle for entering my name, but I do want to ask a question for our student leaders, facilitators, and our panelists. And that is for those who are entering the movement, for those who are joining the movement for maybe the first time, what advice do you have for them?
I have so many things. I think the first thing is whatever knowledge you have just to start with is enough. There's so much you can learn about this movement, and you don't need to be, I used to think before I got into organizing that I had to have like a organizing background or like a political background. You just have to give a damn about something and, you know, be good at talking about the issue with people, which all of those things can be trained on. But what I always recommend for people who really don't know where to start with learning, start with being open to new experiences. you could be volunteering with Planned Parenthood, you can read books about reproductive freedom, you can watch movies, but like I always encourage like small steps and changes because it is a huge movement that even I'm still understanding and learning. And there's also a lot of nuance to the movement. It's not so clear cut and designed perfectly, but learning with podcast, books, TV, movies, and then of course, I always encourage people to reach out to people who are in the movement. I am notorious for calling strangers and emailing and going on LinkedIn and saying, hey, you don't know me, but I see you're doing all these things. Can I have coffee with you? I would say half the time people answer, and the other half, I think people just don't respond, and that's okay. But reach out to people and network and be involved and learn from other people, which is a great way to also learn from their mistakes.
I think for me, I would say to people is, I know change is a very heavy word. So why not just change it to evolve? Evolve in being open to other things. Don't use change, because I know that for some of us, when someone talks about change, it's more like a dictatorship. But if we use evolve, it means we're growing.
I guess I'll say from like a student perspective, one of my philosophies, well, I guess two is, one is just do it, right? Is like, just get involved, just do it. Like Judy said, even if it's at a small level, at least you're getting involved, at least you're, educating yourself, but you have to be willing to sort of to take that first step in whatever capacity that means for you. For me, it was diving headfirst into the reproductive justice realm, and it was never looking back and just how do we move forward from here, which worked for me. But I know, even some of our PPGA members from the past, current, and probably in the future take, much smaller steps. And their first step a lot of the time is coming to speak with us on campus when we have a tabling event, or coming to stop by our booth when we're at a community event and just learning who we are and sort of what we're trying to do for our community. And that is really their first introduction into reproductive justice and rights, and really how huge this beast is, and how important it is that so many people get involved in it, whether you have a uterus or not, or no matter who you are, it takes everyone. And then my second philosophy is, that I never do anything alone. And with something like this, no one person is going to do anything or can really make a difference. It really takes, there's strength in numbers, and there's support in numbers, and there's community in numbers. And for something like this, you really do build community. And for me, has been one of the most incredible things to do, is to be able to create this community of really supportive and inspiring allies and women and men, and be able to explore who I am as an individual, and be able to have a community that advocates for me and supports me and helps me grow, and like Melissa said, evolve as a human. And so, one, you got to just do it, and two, you won't be alone when you do it and you take that first step. There's always going to be someone there who has gone through the same thing that you have, in sort of trying to navigate where do we start or what the first step is. And there's always going to be someone there to hold your hand through it all. And then you get to be that person that holds somebody else's hand as they enter into this fight as well. So for me, that for me is what I would say to especially younger people wanting to get involved, is, just do it. We got you.
Just to follow up on what Jasmine said too, for me, it was, Jasmine had invited me. So sometimes it's just like following, I guess the lead, like your friends, like Jasmine had said, sometimes it's just attending that one meeting or, you know, joining that one group chat or whatever the case is, right? So it's small steps. So just as simple as that. And then it takes you on a journey, and trust the journey. I know it sounds kind of cliche, but it's true. Like, just trust the journey. And especially those who are, you know, leading you and guiding you, they'll teach you a lot. So you're not in this journey alone. And I know that earlier we were saying, you know, that a lot of people, like especially within advocacy and social justice, are very scary and very passionate in what, you know, we do. And I wanted to add to that and say, even if you're not, even if you're shy and you're like, I may be scary online, but maybe in person, I'm a little bit scared, low-key. Like, that's totally fine too. You know, like, we need different types of, you know, leaders. So even those who maybe are more like on the research side of things, maybe that could be like your area of advocacy, or more on the literature side, or more on the whatever it is. There's like so many types of like advocacy work, you know, or different areas that you can dive into. So that's another piece of advice that I'd say, like, don't be afraid to just be yourself. Just be yourself and show up.
Christy, you had the last question. There was a question for me at the end that you didn't ask about. So I'm gonna go ahead and do it because I actually wrote this down and I didn't want to forget. So do you want to ask the question? Number 10?
Yes, I'll ask you the question. So this question is for Maribel. You've been a champion for reproductive rights for a long time. With the recent overturning and long history of achieving abortion rights, how important is it to not assume defeat and to keep advocating for choice? Do you think the generation fighting this has a long road ahead? And Maribel, you can answer it, and you know, others can also, after Maribel can answer this question. Oops, sorry.
Okay, so I'm gonna read it just as I wrote it because I don't want to forget anything. And I wrote this last night. I was thinking, oh my God, what am I gonna say about this? But it's like, we do not have the luxury of defeat. We must keep fighting for as long as it takes to regain our body autonomy. Like Hillary Clinton said, women's rights are human rights, and we must never forget that. I feel the road will be as long as the young people want it to be. The way you will defeat the attack on reproductive rights is by raising your voice. Start by making your posters, joining marches or protests, participate in phone banks, donate to organizations doing the work. But the biggest weapon you have is your vote. So we must make it our mission to get everyone registered to vote, but it doesn't stop there. You must make sure those same people actually make it to the polls. So if you have to give rights to your family and friends, then you do that. You gotta remember, women are 51% of the population. The problem is that we don't vote like it. But voting is not the only weapon you have. You can also run for office. If you don't like how your city is being run, don't complain. Run for city council. You don't like the books being banned, run for school board, and so forth. One of my favorite quotes is from Mahatma Gandhi, who said, "You must be the change you wish to see in the world." And I honestly believe change is coming because I see it in the young people who I am honored to work with, such as the 3 PPGA moderators and the rest of the PPGA members on this forum. They will be the future chingonas who will make the difference one way or another.
I'm so glad that we asked you that question because that answer was amazing. So I'm sorry we skipped over number 10. Next time that won't happen. We'll
It's okay.
we'll ask you all those questions. Let's see. I think there's a question in the chat. So let me see. San Diego Regional Center has clients from 0 to adults, so they work the entire lifetime. Is there any way Planned Parenthood could do a small Zoom presentation for parents of disabled people. Woo, absolutely. I'm going to answer on behalf of them. Absolutely. But also PPGA can also do that as well if you wanted to target more of the students who are entering the college area. We can do outreach for high schoolers as well. And we've done that before. But I'll leave that to maybe Maribel to answer on behalf of
Yeah.
I'll leave
yeah.
that to Karen.
Karen.
Yes, Tanya, we'll email you. It'll be our education team. One of the things we sort of touched on but didn't talk about too much is that we really try and be everywhere for everyone. One of the ways we did that during the pandemic, two of the ways was one, starting our like telehealth work. So you can now have a telehealth visit with any of our providers. And two, we started our sex education curriculum online. We call it Sex Ed to Go. If someone wouldn't mind like dropping the website on the chat for me. But our Sex Ed to Go program provides like the different topics around comprehensive sexual health education for different people, for parents, for students, for guardians. We just recently launched a curriculum that is a little more accessible than we had ever like thought of accessibility around comprehensive sex ed. Sort of the digital space allows us to do more than we've ever been able to do before. So Tanya, you'll definitely hear back from us, probably from one of our education staff out in San Diego, and they can definitely set up a small curriculum, a big curriculum, whatever it is that you might need from us. We really do try kind of just be there whenever people ask. And the same goes for all of you. If there is ever anything that you think like, hey, maybe I should think about reaching out to Planned Parenthood, just do it. It's very likely that if we don't know the answer, we might know someone else in the community who does know the answer. Whatever it is that you think you might need support with, information, questions, whatever it might be, reach out to us. We try and be a very good partner, including like our space in El Centro. We have our office space, doesn't hold a lot of people yet, but we will open up the space for you to have a community meeting, right? Whatever it is that you might need, reach out to us.
Great, thank you so much. Anyone else have any? Oh, well, actually, I see another comment on here from Aday Urias, and she is the case manager for SDSU in Pearl Valley for the Student Health Services, Counseling and Psychological Services. And they say that they would love to have educational information at our office. Thank you so much for that comment, Aday. And we can also connect with you to have informational resources on there too, and maybe collaborate in the near future.
Can I say something on that too? Alberto Galvan is the community and education manager here in the Imperial Valley in the office here. And he's got an educator, her name's Joanne Flores, and then he's got two promotoras also. And they have a curriculum that's called Making Proud Choices that comes from the state of, curriculum that goes with the state of California. The Child Youth Act, and which should be taught in schools, but it's not. So you can reach out to him or me, and I can give you the number to him, and then he can give you the resources. He can even show you what the curriculum is and stuff, and see if that's something that you would like taught. I know that's something that PPGA wanted done because they took the course. It's a 9-hour course and they loved it. So they want to bring that forward to, like, let's say the incoming freshmen would be able to take this course because it's a state course. There's a grant, and so they get like a gift card, $20 gift card after completing the course, and then they get school supplies as well. And so I know PPGA wanted to, start that up, and by maybe Victoria's next year project. See, I'm already harassing you, Victoria, and stuff, but that is one of the things here in Imperial County that we really need to work on, and that's sex education, because it's not. And parents are not going to tell us. I get that a lot of the tabling. The parents come and say, hey, where can I take my kid? I don't want to talk about sex. They don't listen to me. Who listens to parents, right? So they'll listen to somebody else. And so that's something that we really have to touch on the education. And that's why I'm so glad that PPGA is looking ahead, like saying, okay, you know what? We do have to, even the incoming, because you're not getting it at high school. So they're incoming and they don't have any of that education. So hopefully we can do that as well.
Yeah, Victoria, she turned off her camera. Yeah, no es cierto.
I scared her.
She's like, ya me voy. No es cierto.
No, never. I've seen a scarier version of you. You got me. You can't get rid of me.
Great. So I want to welcome Dr. Gina Nunez to our call. Thank you so much. And for those of you who do not know, let me share my screen actually first, just so I can properly introduce her. So Dr. Gina Nunez, she is the Dean of SDSU Imperial Valley. So thank you so much for taking the time to show up on this call and give us our closing keynote. And then just some housekeeping, feel free to continue to share your questions. I know that we do have 15 minutes left. So in the last 5 minutes, for those of you who would like to stay and participate in the book raffle, please feel free to to hang around. But for now, we're going to hand over the mic to Dr. Gina Nunez. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Chrissy, for a kind introduction. Thank you, buenas tardes, good afternoon. It's with tremendous pleasure that I join you today. And thank you, Vanessa, and everyone for the invitation. I want to first acknowledge that our presentation was derailed, right? And we have to talk about the fear and the hatred and the misogyny that oftentimes derails women's efforts. And today is no exception. This week is no extension. And it's incredibly disheartening. But I also call this as a call to action. It's a tall order for us to gather, for us to inventory our needs and understand what assets we have. And I don't say this in a corporate form. We have a lot of intellectual capital in this room and the space and the people joining us today. We have a lot of strategies. We have a lot of networks. And in fact, it is the networks of women that have been historically organizing to provide the support for others who don't have those resources that have allowed us to move forward in this movement. As we know, with the history of social justice in this country, African Americans organized for the rights. Chicanos have organized for the rights. Women have organized for the rights. Our LGBT community has organized for the rights. And then we have the intersections that bring us here, because many of us participate and are part of multiple organizations. I want to acknowledge also that I just returned from a binational conference in Oaxaca, where I have been working with multiple institutions to address gender-based violence on the border in Mexico and the United States, and now in Europe, where we have European countries and representatives asking to join us, because there's something that we have been able to do working together. And we know what distinguishes us as women is coming together, expressing our vulnerability, expressing our needs. I want to relay to you a few experiences of what I saw, what I witnessed, what I worked with in El Paso, Texas, where I was formerly before coming to San Diego State Imperial Valley as your dean for this campus. But I am originally from California, and I went to do research in the colonias of New Mexico. One of the biggest challenges of living in rural communities is the lack of medical care and medical access. The Imperial Valley is no exception. We know that the deficit, the lack of investment, the lack of equity in healthcare has taken a detrimental turn for our population. What I want us to remember is that oftentimes women put their needs back. They leave themselves in the back burner while they take care of their partners, their families, their parents. So when is it our turn? It's today. Ya estuvo bueno, ya basta. And something that we talked about is the ya basta is hasta aquí. Because if we are not able to take care of ourselves, it is very difficult to take care of others. And it is time that we take care of ourselves a little bit more, querernos un poquito más, cuidarnos un poquito más, atendernos un poquito más, dormir un poquito más, sanarnos un poquito más, educarnos un poquito más, come together a little bit more. Everybody's tired, everybody's tapped out. But at the same time, at the end of the day, people come to us as women. We are the caretakers, the nurturers, the advocates, the lawyers. And for many of us, for first generation, we grew up translating for our parents, advocating for our siblings, advocating for our community. There is a breadth of feminist research, and I'm glad to share as much of it as possible and also to learn from you. But in the past, I worked with Mexicanas who came to the United States with an idea of what life in the United States would be like, an idea of what the American dream would be like. They didn't sign up for coming to the United States and not having access to medical care after 5 p.m. because in rural communities, most clinics only open from 9 to 5. If you're a mother, you know that our kids don't choose to get sick only between 9 to 5. Our kids will get sick at 2 o'clock in the morning. They might get sick at 6 o'clock in the morning and vomit. And here we are trying to take care of our kids while trying to go to work. And the lack of childcare has been a big challenge for us. I have learned through my research that when women step out of the workforce, there is now computer and software equipment that will read our CVs. The impact of women stepping out of the workforce means we don't have access to healthcare and medical care and benefits. The impact of stepping out of the workforce means that the software will read our CV, and if there's a gap of 6 years, our CVs are not even considered. So we can't even afford to step away from the workforce to have our children and to nurture them and take care of them home. Because for many women who have taken that route, it has meant not being able to be employed in the future. So we know that as women, we come together in the spirit of sisterhood and in solidarity to advocate not just for ourselves, but for those who cannot, because they have taken other routes to exist as women, as mothers, as caretakers, as leaders, and as professionals. Because oftentimes the cost of becoming a professional also involves postponing our reproductive bodies and our decisions to have children. We wait until the right person comes along. We wait until we have the right job. We wait until we get benefits. We wait until we can afford. And oftentimes for many, that is a long wait that costs us in the long term. And we know a lot of warriors who just turn around and says, nunca me casé o nunca tuve mis hijos, because you don't have to get married to have your children. But that is also a loss. And there's a sadness there. So my research in New Mexico has taught me that if we're going to create change, we have to come together. And I've learned about the power of networks, the power of partnerships. I remember being a grad student in Colonia in southern New Mexico. And I offered to take the notes. I'm an anthropologist by training, so I would take the notes, I would take the minutes. But because I was the witness, I was the observer, I was the note taker, I could turn those notes over to the community and say, here are your notes. This is your fight. You speak for yourself. I do not come here to speak for you. I will walk with you. And I want to share with you that an indigenous and a Chicana Latina concept is that of acompañamiento, that we have signed up to accompany others who do not feel they are strong enough to stand on their own, although we know they are, but they don't need to be on their own, right? We did not ask for a room of our own. For many of us, as children of immigrants, we have grown up sharing our spaces. And today is no exception. I'm here to offer you the shared space of higher education, We're a small campus. We've been here for like 60 years in the Imperial Valley, but we have a lot of work to do ahead of us. We are here to educate. And I don't want us to bow down to misogyny and to hate or to haters and to be afraid. There is power in numbers. When we accompany each other in seeking justice, in seeking fair equity, fair treatment, in seeking basic services, we are not alone, we are not weak, and we are not undeserving. We want and seek what others have. And one of the biggest lessons of Roe versus Wade is that we have to be vigilant, that we have to take stock of what is working for us and share that message with the people who might not know the language or how to use the technology. We know there's a digital divide, and that affects our communities. It affects our communities of color. It affects our elders or people who don't have access to services that most middle-class Americans have. And we learned that getting just the vaccination, getting registered was not so easy. So we knew that we had to use our resources, our networks, and our technology to register our elders, register our neighbors, register our own family members when they didn't know how. And that vaccine helped us keep ourselves from dying at higher numbers. But we know communities of color were affected by COVID, have been affected by unjust and inequitable distribution of educational and medical services. That takes a toll. It takes a toll on our bodies, on our families, and our communities. Look around. Hay tristeza en nuestras comunidades. Historically, we have been underinvested, but it is up to us to know our worth and know our rights and not take them for granted. When I was asked by Vanessa to reflect on post-Roe v. Wade, I have to remind myself that seeking justice, seeking care does not guarantee those services will be delivered. That we need to be vigilant, that we need to be present, and we need to show up and say, we asked for these services, where are they? Take inventory. And it is not enough to have them. We need to share them. We need to share the message. We need to accompany people to make sure that they get treated with dignity when they're asking for care, just like any other person would ask for that care. Oftentimes we feel ourselves left behind, undeserving, underserved. It's time to start changing that language. I did not sign up to be left behind. I worked really hard to put myself through school and to open doors for others. And I know every single woman in this room, virtually or in person or logging in or on campus, we signed up, we're helping each other. We're coming together, brazo en brazo. Over this break and this week, one of our colleagues did not feel well. Se le subió la presión, something happened. And she felt her side and said, just let me put my head down. I saw a group of students and colleagues stand around her, haciendo guardia. We were not ready to walk and leave her behind. Aquí no se queda nadie atrás. We waited until she was ready to walk, and then arm in arm, we kept on walking forward. I invite you to extend your arm. This is not about you, it's not about me, it's about us. This is our fight. This is our struggle. And eventually we're going to change that language, because healthcare should not be a struggle. It should be a right. And I come from a state where women lost Planned Parenthood. I come from a state of Texas where I worked for 18 years, although I'm from California, where women from Texas had to go to New Mexico to get healthcare, where women had to cross the border to get birth control and seek healthcare if they had the proper documents. But we all know amongst us, there's always someone in our family who doesn't have those documents and who does not have the freedom and the luxury of movement. Movement too is a right. And we know in our community that is a right that is not guaranteed to all of us, especially to our unauthorized students and family members, and some who have already been deported. So the reflection of who we are, the rights we have gained, the shoulders of the women that we have stood on is really important. We have to look back to understand our trajectory of how we got here. We have to look to the left and to the right to know we don't stand in this justice alone, in this search for justice alone. And we have to look forward, because we live in the state of California, where many Rights have already been gained. But the lesson is not to take those lessons and those benefits for granted. We have to take stock. We have to acknowledge what we've gained, and we need to move forward. In El Paso, in collaboration with Mexicanas, Chicanas, Latinas, we created a community teatro, a theater, and that's what I presented at the conference in Oaxaca last week. We went from Yo Soy Teatro to Ya Basta. We created a theater group of 10 Latina leaders from Mexico, Latin America, the United States, and we created 1-minute monologues. And we asked different members of our community group to personify, to do the research and to dress up as that character and to come back and share that history in the community. I represented Dolores Huerta, and I find that my connection as a farm worker kid connected with Dolores, but I know she's much thinner than I am. And it starts with Yo Soy Dolores Huerta, the co-founder of United Farm Workers of America. Fundamos la Unión de Campesinos Unidos junto con Cesar Chavez. I used to be a teacher, fui maestra, but when I saw the conditions that my students lived in, I knew I had to do something, and I left my profession, and I became an organizer. Today, I am the president of the Dolores Huerta Foundation. Wherever I go, I help prepare communities of consciousness. Sí se puede, claro que sí. My name is Dolores Huerta, veterana en la causa por los derechos humanos de mi gente. Thank you. So I share this with you because oftentimes when we present our theater, people are in tears or they're upset. ¿Por qué lloran? We know Dolores, we know Frida, maybe we know Sor Juana, but all these other characters we've never heard about. Why? Because our stories have not been told in our textbooks, in our classrooms. The stories of the women who have been creating change historically have not been acknowledged. So it is upon us for us to acknowledge the women who have opened doors for others, the women who stepped out of line, las que no se quedaron calladitas y hablaron porque tenían que hablar. We need to acknowledge our own history, her story, and we've got to share those stories. We got to share those victories because they don't always come easy. But if we're not listening to each other, we're not walking on arm in arm, we're missing the point. It's not about us. It's not about our egos. It's not about que fregona soy. No, we can't celebrate yet. Those celebrations are so important because the need is still great. Unless we're all healthier, and we're all able to access care, whether in Spanish or English or whatever language our people speak. No hemos ganado esa batalla todavía. I had the privilege and opportunity to be taught by a professor who advocated and testified for the women in Los Angeles who were sterilized against their will. That story is told in the documentary No Más Bebés. If you have not seen that documentary, las invito a que busquemos el documental y hay que vernos. Hay que verlo and understand that Latinas have been sterilized against their will, and that happened in our state of California. That every day we stay silent, we are complicit to a lot of these imposed violences. Obstetric violence is real. It's happened to Mexicanas, indigenous women, Black women, Puerto Riqueñas, Latinas. When people in power have made decisions about our ability and willingness to reproduce. Ya basta. As we did the Yo Soy Teatro, we used that as the platform to create the teatro called Ya Basta. And we began to describe our stories of gender-based violence. And we began to perform our stories of gender-based violence in different settings. So I share that, I offer that in a native tradition. Te ofrecen una canción, yo les ofrezco teatro, les ofrezco una plática, les ofrezco un taller. Lo que yo les puedo ofrecer con mucho gusto, not all at the same time. I have a very complex schedule, right? Pero cuando podamos, call to action, call us to listen, call us to share knowledge, a book, a documentary, a policy, the history of how we created that policy, and the strategies for organizing. The time to continue to gather and to hold each other up is now. Gracias, and thank you for the invitation to speak to you today.
Thank you, Dr. Nunez, for taking the time to, have this amazing speech for us here today and those who will watch the recording later too. We deeply appreciate it, and it was a very motivating and empowering speech y me dio escalofríos. Muchas gracias por estar aquí hoy. Y just to, because it's 3 p.m., we, want to respect your time. So for those who, have to leave, totally understand that. Thank you so much. But now we're going to transition into our book raffle. So we're going to be raffling off 3 books. So I'll let our compañera Jasmine take it away.
Yes, thank you. And I did want to ask as well, I know this is being recorded, but if I could just take a screenshot photo of everyone here today, I would really appreciate it. So if you don't want your face to be seen, I'm going to ask that you take your camera off. But if you would please put your cameras on so we can take just a cute little snapshot. Again, this will be recorded and it'll be posted for people to see, but just super quick, we'll take one and I'll count us down so you can fix your hair a little bit, get your right angles. And I'll wait for just a second to see. We've got some other people getting their cameras on. Fantastic. All right, I think that's going to be everyone putting their cameras on. So on smile, 3, 2, 1. All right, fantastic. That's it. So I'm going to share my screen, and I know we put in the group chat that the raffle was going to be just for SDSU-IV students, but I just put every single person's name in there. So the more the merrier is what I say. So let me share my screen so you all can see that I'm not cheating. So I think some people did log off. So only those who are present will be able to win a book. So if you are here with your name, if you could just raise your hand so that way we can coordinate how to get the book to you. And I'll have either Christy or Dr. Falcon private message you to see the best ways that we can get you your book. All right, first one, here we go. Herman is our first winner. Is he still here? I think he is still here. If he's not, he doesn't win.
He's here, yeah.
Okay, cool. Herman, congrats. I'm gonna remove you from our little wheel. All right, we'll spin it again. All right, Christian G or Christian. Congratulations. And if you are here, Christy, are you gonna message them? Or if you could send a message to Christy or Dr. Falcon.
I don't see them on this call, so I don't know if they left.
Not here anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, Christian is here.
Oh,
He is here?
sorry.
They are
Yes.
here.
Oh, there you are. Oh, sorry about that.
All right, Christy's gonna message you. Congratulations, Christian.
Thank you.
All right, our last one, our last winner. April, is she here still?
No, she had to leave.
Oh, she doesn't win then.
She's gonna be disappointed.
She's gonna be really mad. Oh, well, let's see. It's April. She's amazing. Okay. Adrian, are they still here?
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a great
Yay!
presentation, people.
Thank you so much, Adrian, for being part of our event today and being a winner. So Christy will send you a message so that way we can coordinate how to best get you that book.
All right. Have a good day, guys.
Thank you so much. And yeah, that's it for us. Dr. Falcon, I don't know if you wanted to maybe make some closing statements.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your time, for your brilliance, for your talent, and for your work. for being at the forefront of this fight. I just want to emphasize that the doors here at the Cross Cultural Center are open to continue dialogue, to continue conversations like this one. And I just want to end by, saying once again, thank you. And we look forward to continuing to be in community and in solidarity.